Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here. Steve Maves in the studio. It's been a while, Steve, since we've done this thing here in the studio together, but trying to get everybody all set for these girls, boys, basketball playoffs, wrestling, gymnastics, everything going on, coming on down the stretch. And, you know, Steve, love is a four-letter word. Said about, though, maybe more freely, depending on circles you run in, than the other series and sets of four-letter words. But we love playoffs. I mean, this is it. And the brackets, I mean, I'm staring at multiple tabs on my computer screen now of brackets, and I could stare at them all day. It's an amazing time of the year when the seasons come to an end, and we love it. We absolutely love it. And it is though, I think, Steve, a love-hate relationship, probably, because if you're a senior or for whatever reason not playing again next year by the time it all ends, all but one team in any particular division, you probably won't smile, at least not initially, right? I mean, some of these careers are ending, but we love it because it is fun. There's pure joy on the faces of these kids. And they are having the time of their lives out there on the court, on the mat, on the vault, whatever their skill and their craft and their sport is. Having the time of their lives, making memories forever. Just before we went on air, I was telling Steve I was headed back from Prairie Farm, a place I'd never been, a place I thought I'd never be. Prairie Farm, Wisconsin. Look it up on the map. You'd have to, if you don't know where it is, to figure out where in the heck this place is. I was on my way back, traveling down Highway 29, coming back to central Wisconsin, and passed a bus that I couldn't quite figure where in the world it might have been coming from. And not till I got home, I looked at the brackets and found out who was on that bus and what had happened. So we'll start our reporting there in Division I over the weekend in girls basketball. And that bus was filled with none other than about 15 Spash Panther girls basketball players, and one just pure basketball player, Leah Ernest, hits a shot at the end of regulation or overtime. I forget which it was, but Spash upsets Hudson 58-56, and they move on now. They will play the number one seed and I think third ranked in the state, Bayport Pirates. Best of luck, Panthers. That game is at DC Everest on Thursday. Go down and check out. Again, one of the purest, just a joy to watch. She's just fantastic on the basketball court, Leah Ernest, and an even better person. And who knows, Steve? Yeah. Who knows, right? You get in the brackets, who knows?
Well, and that's exactly at this point of the year. If you get hot at the right time and you get your players to believe that you can knock off these teams that you weren't supposed to, they probably were expecting in the locker room themselves to go over to Hudson and knock off Hudson, but a lot of people probably didn't. Leah Ernest tweeted out to Norbert Dust from WIS Sports and said, "You didn't believe in us again," and we were able to knock off Hudson. And so, as you mentioned, they have a very tough task against Bayport, but DC Everest is much closer to Stevens Point than it is to Bayport, and so have that little bit of a shorter drive. But it's one of those things. Leah Ernest, as you mentioned, one of the purest basketball players in the area that we've seen in a long time. Over 2,000 career points.
Unbelievable.
And just a fantastic basketball player, absolutely. Yeah,
tough to score over 500 points in a career. It's celebrated when you score 1,000. And then 2,000 is rare air as far as that's concerned. So take a look at the rest of the area. In Division I, Marshfield did fall on Friday. And we'll take just a quick cruise around here. Everest bowed out to Bayport. Wausau West bowed out to those Hudson Raiders. And I think we'll leave it at that.
Rapids. Rapids lost to Green Bay Preble. Who then...
in a regional final.
Yeah,
right.
A regional semifinal.
Semifinal, yes.
And then they just took care of Superior by 40. And so Green Bay Preble, which you don't get to see a whole lot, they get to host a sectional semifinal. They're playing the sectional semifinal at Green Bay Green Bay Preble against a very good Kimberly team. So they get that home court advantage as well, which you don't see a lot of this late in the postseason.
Yep. Schedules and host sites made out in advance, and that's just the way that it works out. All right, let's now go to Division 5. These are girls basketball playoff results from this past weekend. Again, if we don't mention your team or your team's game specifically, send us a message and complain. That'll work out. Leva Strum ended the Columbus Catholic Dons season over on Saturday. Pittsville had a bout out earlier in the playoffs on Tuesday, as did Granton. Staying in Division 5, Greenwood had upset Flambeau. Nice job there. Trevor Wietrich's first year coaching girls basketball. Get a playoff road upset like that, the 10 over the 7. They did get defeated. They were defeated by Prairie Farm the next day. And that's where the Loyal Greyhounds came in and supported their Clark County friends over there. And that's a game that Dan Ross and myself had a chance to partake in. I mentioned Prairie Farm, a place I never thought I would be, but I was. And nice folks there. The Panther Den was raucous. It was loud. They were having a good time, and they stuck with the Hounds for a while. But Loyal just persevered, just overcame, and they just kept scoring. Panthers kept running, and eventually ran out of gas. And so now Loyal will take on Clear Lake in a sectional semifinal. Clear Lake is undefeated this year. They are the number 1 seed. They beat Gilman 72-46, and that's a team that Loyal had seen twice during the year. So they've got that common opponent now, and they can study up on Clear Lake. And that'll be a game that we will broadcast live at ZaleskiSports.com on Thursday. All right, Steve, anything else in Division 5? We should, Newman Catholic. Maybe what am I thinking here? Newman Catholic over Prentice. That was a revenge game. Prentice had defeated Newman Catholic at Prentice about 2 weeks ago. Newman gets them back. Newman regional finals champs again this year. Edgar gets revenge in a way. They likely thought they should have been regional finals champs last year with that game at Assumption. They are regional finals champs this year as they took down the Wild Rose Wildcats. 2 Wildcats going at it, Steve, 63-47. Now it's Wildcats Cardinals, Thursday sectional semifinal.
Yeah, and a game that is obviously going to be very big, and a lot of people are going to be over at Moe's Knee, but Edgar only lost to Newman Catholic a couple weeks ago by 1 point, and that was the game where Newman secured the conference title. So Edgar rolling, as you mentioned, took down Rosholt and then took down Wild Rose. But it's going to be one heck of a game, one heck of a atmosphere over in Moe's Knee on Thursday. Hats off to the Assumption Royals. They went down to Wild Rose and fell by 3 points. They stuck with them pretty much the whole game. Just a couple of little mistakes at the end. Jessie Grunhofer, 24 points, and her and Emily Bowen really couldn't be stopped down low. But the 3-point making by Wild Rose was a little too much. And then, as you mentioned, the Edgar Wildcats taking care of Wild Rose to get to a sectional semifinal against Newman Catholic.
Yeah, Wild Rose be a force to contend with for a while. They've been outstanding freshmen, some other underclassmen that they've got, and so nothing to hang your head about over there in Wild Rose. But Edgar and Newman, and like Steve said, get a chance to take in that game over in Moe's Knee. You should, because those are 2 fairly evenly matched teams, and I'd say you walk in there. I don't offer any predictions ever on high school sports, but that'll be one, I think, for the ages, perhaps. All right, in Division 4, girls basketball playoffs over the weekend. Neillsville Warriors are regional champs. They beat Osseo Fairchild 54-43. That was a Cloverbelt crossover rematch from a week ago. A week prior, that game went to overtime and free throws. Nailed it down for Neillsville that day. This particular Saturday, 2 days ago, 54-43, I talked to Neillsville head coach John Geyer over at the Cloverbelt boys crossover game earlier that afternoon, and he was, as a coach, you look for an edge. Mm-hmm. However you can find it, something to give your team a speech, tell them that they've got an edge. Well, Osseo had to play all the way down to the wire against Durand, 55-53, so all the starters had to play that whole game. Neillsville able to rest as they cruised by Cadott 50-25 the day before. So Coach was saying, geez, I hope those Thunder girls are tired. Well, I don't know if they were tired or if it's just a case of Neillsville just that much better. But Neillsville now will play in a sectional semifinal on Thursday, and they will take on a state team from last year, the Melrose Mindoro Mustangs, as the Mustangs got by the Fall Creek Crickets 66-31, a tough task for the Warriors on Thursday.
Well, and Melrose Mindoro is one of those teams that has been around for quite a while now as a contender at the state level for a number of years. Neillsville, as we mentioned, just keeps on rolling. And if once you get hot, it's going to be tough to get stopped. But Melrose Mindoro won by 40 against Cochrane Fountain City, and then they won by 35 against Fall Creek. So a team that scores a lot of points and a team that doesn't give up a lot of points, it's going to be tough to take down. But Neillsville's got the girls to do it. If they can get hot from beyond the arc and can get some big stops, it's going to be another great game. Once you get to this point of the year, they're all going to be pretty fun games to watch.
Yep, and all teams are good regardless of whatever their team makeup, size, speed. Everybody's good. And everybody's got an advantage somewhere on the basketball court, and a coach like John Geyer will find the advantage, and then it's up to his girls to go take advantage of those situations that arise from his coaching. All right, also in Division 4, and this is where things really got interesting over the weekend, and we knew it would. As we looked at the Division 4 and Sectional 2, we knew this was going to be as unpredictable gets, and it was. Let's start, though, on Tuesday. Abbotsford fell to Necedah 57-14, and Stratford overcame Spencer 50-20. And then Stratford went to Auburndale the next day in a game that Auburndale and Stratford were neck and neck through the first half. Stratford challenged Auburndale through the first half of that game, and it looked like, as I was watching the score from Colby that night, we may have an upset on our hands. Brianna Ackley ended up, though, for Stratford with just 5 points, not enough to overcome. So Auburndale won that game 47-30, and they moved on to the regional final. Also, that was all the Tuesday and Friday games. Pacelli then, as I mentioned, I was at Colby for that game. Pacelli upsets Colby, the 5-4, 56-52. It was a year ago in a regional final. It was an ice day. So Ice Storm overcomes Central Wisconsin that day. All games pushed to Monday except for Colby Pacelli. The Pacelli girls traveled up from Stevens Point to Colby, glided, I guess, skated on their way up through the ice storm, fell that day in a regional final. Well, a year had changed. Some of those players, and a matter of fact, a lot of those players from last year were at that game, including 1,000-point scorer Ashley Streveler, who was recognized after the game. But with those girls not there, and Pacelli trying to get on a hot streak, they took down Colby 56-52 in the upset there. And then the very next day, short turnaround, Stephen, you see this all the time, especially in these high school formats like we have, where you play a game Friday and a game Saturday, or game day one and then right away turn around day two. And if you're on a hot streak, you can stay hot. And the Pacelli Cardinals did just that. It was about 4 seconds left in regulation. Sarah Mueller stepped through 2 defenders and to the basket, and just a wonderful move by Sarah Mueller to get through that double team, score the bucket, and they take down Auburndale 48-46. Pacelli, regional finals champions.
Yeah, and that goes to obviously the players that they have: Sarah Mueller, Emma Van Order, and all those Sammy Miller, all those girls that they have over at Pacelli. That I saw them a couple weeks ago against Wild Rose, and they got run out of the gym. And so to be able to come back and be able to take down a Colby team, and then go to Auburndale and take down the Apaches. It's always tough, obviously, to win on the road and to be able to do it in back-to-back nights against a very good Colby and very good Auburndale team as a 5 seed, getting to winning a regional championship is always tough. And so for Pacelli to get that done, Coach Jolling, hats off to him, credit to him, saw something in the tape that they were able to take advantage of. And again, if you stay hot, you can get hot at the right time, and that's what Pacelli is doing. They have a tough task against Marathon, a team that they only lost by 3 points to earlier this year, and it's going to be another fantastic matchup if the Pacelli Cardinals come to play like they have the first 2 rounds of the tournament so far this year.
So, again, that game will take place Thursday at 7 p.m. We're still waiting to find out where. That schedule, that we mentioned earlier in the show, that gets made out a year ahead of time, had this location in Adams Friendship. That was with the, if Westfield or Necedah or even Princeton Green Lake, for that matter, were to advance to that point, that would have been a good neutral site place, a geographically located place. But now with Pacelli and Marathon, we'll see. Although Steve and I talked about this yesterday, as we look through, Mosney not available, Marshfield probably too big, Rapids probably too big, West maybe available, East maybe available. We'll see. Or they could keep it in Adams Friendship.
Yeah, and that goes to, I think we saw it last year, maybe for baseball or softball or something, that two teams from the north had to go to the south and play a sectional game or a sectional final, and that goes to, again, even going to baseball for the sectional and sectional final on the same day. You went up to Crivets or wherever you went, and two teams, I mean, that had no reason to be in Crivets for a sectional semifinal or sectional final, traveling all the way over there to do it. But we'll see if Adams keeps the sectional semi. Well,
and they probably want to. They've had this advance notice. They've got the staffing in place. You know, you want to be able to sell some popcorn and the tickets and show off your school. They probably still want to, and that can be a decision that the WIAA, or a factor in it anyway, that they want to consider. All right. Anything else we missed in girls playoff basketball? I don't think so. I think that's a wrap. WIAA, WI.org, ZaleskiSports.com. More information on any of those games are found there. All right, let's move now to wrestling. Well, we had individual state over the weekend, and we had 5 area winners from Saturday. In Stevens Point, Justin Groshek is a state champion. Stratford's Gavin Drexler and Edgar's Ethan Heil, and all 3 of those wrestlers were actually undefeated. I know, on the year. And Trevor Denny is a champion as well from Stratford. And it seems like I'm missing one here, but Steve, 5, I'll count them up here in a minute, but I'll give you a chance to react to. 3 of those guys have an undefeated seasons over the course of the year, 46-0, 50-0, 31-0.
Yeah, and that's remarkable. Just watching wrestling as I do every once in a while, but to do it individually as a team is remarkable to win as much as some of these teams do, but to do it individually every single match, and they're wrestling 3, 4, 5 times a day, sometimes over the weekend, and just to be able to go out there and get the job done every match is outstanding, and credit to them every time they go out on the mat and get the job done.
Wrestler number 5 in the area, Jake Rowell from Medford, is a repeat champion from Division II. So again, it's Stevens Point's Justin Groshek, Stratford's Gavin Drexler, Edgar's Ethan Heil, Stratford's Trevor Denny, and Medford's Jake Rowell are state champions in individual state wrestling from Saturday. Now team state, so all these guys will go back down and try to help their teams win a state title. And all that action is Friday and Saturday down at the Cole Center. You can read about those 5 wrestlers I mentioned at ZaleskiSports.com. And we'll give you more updates at ZaleskiSports.com over the team state this weekend, again, down at the Cole Center in Madison. All right, moving on now to other games this week as boys. The state tournament starts right now as we're sitting here. And what I mean by that is the games take place tomorrow, but coaches will install their final preparations. They watched likely more tape, more film of their opponents, and they will give their team's final instruction tonight at practice, and then Tuesday. And we are off and running for boys basketball. Got a whole series of highlights coming for you on Tuesday night, and you can find all highlights on Facebook on the Zaleski Sports Facebook network. Loyal hosts Wisconsin Valley Lutheran, Greenwood hosts Bruce, Spencer hosts Abbotsford. You can also listen to that game live on 92.3 WOSQ. Columbus Catholic hosts Rosh Holt, and you can also listen to that game live on 1450 AM WDLB. Pacelli hosts Colby, and Marathon hosts Shawamigan. And we're going to look at those D4 brackets here in just a moment here, Steve. But first thoughts on those games and just boys playoff basketball getting underway.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things that, especially in a matchup like 8 and 9, like you saw Loyal and Wisconsin Valley Lutheran, it's a lot like the NCAA tournament. That's a toss-up game. Even a 7-10 game could be a toss-up game, but it's one of those things. Saw Columbus Catholic last week against McDonald Central. Lights out. I mean, they couldn't miss. And so if they get hot at the right time, you never know what might happen. And so, as I mentioned in the girls' tournament, if you get hot and you are able to stop people on the defensive end, you never know how far you're going to get. But as we mentioned at the outset of the show, it's one of the most exciting times of the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we like football and volleyball playoffs and soccer playoffs and baseball and softball, but there's nothing like basketball playoffs when every single team in the state has a chance and every single team in the state is in the brackets, and there's over 400 teams, and 5 teams are going to be state champions. So it's a very exciting time of the year.
Steve mentioned that Columbus Catholic McDonald Central game. That was a Clover Belt crossover or a playoff prep game, depending on how you want to look at it, really, because it can be that. And it perhaps was that for Columbus Catholic that day on Thursday against McDonald Central. I think both Coach Neiman of Spencer and Coach Geyer of Neilsville boys basketball treated their crossover games on Saturday. I know they took them very seriously. I was at both. We broadcast both live. And they treated those games as, okay, guys, here, this is our final, especially if you're Neilsville and you've got a bye and you don't play till Friday. Mm-hmm. You really want to get everything out on the floor and test some of those things to prepare for the playoffs. The first game of the day, it was Spencer losing to Thorpe, and then that was the second place crossover game. And the first place crossover game saw Neilsville overcome Altoona in a very high scoring game and a fun game. And you can again rewatch any of our games live. Just go into YouTube. So, for example, type in Neilsville Altoona basketball. You can rewatch those games, or go to highlights, and Facebook will show you all the highlights. So, when I mention those teams, also, Steve, because they all compete in this treacherous D4 number 2 section, and that's where they all stay. So as a quick reminder, I mentioned all those games. We'll bring highlights to you of on Tuesday, but it's 8-seed Pacelli hosting 9-seed Colby, number 5-seed Marathon hosting 12-seed Shawamigan, number 6-seed Spencer hosting 11-seed Abbotsford, and then number 7-seed Phillips hosting the 10 Crandon. The winner of that plays Auburndale. Spencer, should they overcome Abbotsford, will play Edgar. Marathon, you would think, would be able to get past the 12-seed Shawamigan Eagles, and they would then travel to Neilsville. And the winner of Colby Pacelli gets to play the undefeated Stratford Tigers. All those teams sitting there on that bye, just waiting and just kind of, doing the finger rubbing and the grin, the Grinch grin, maybe, just waiting, and they are going to attack.
Well, and that, as you mentioned, that top section of Sectional 2 in Division 4 has all those top-tier teams, but then the bottom section as well. I mean, 6 of the top 10 teams in Division 4 are in one sectional. You have in the bottom Iola Scandinavia, Oshkosh Lourdes, Shiocton, and all those teams will have to play this Stratford, Auburndale, Neilsville, one of those teams in the sectional final, but it's one of those things where you are lucky or happy to have that first round bye. Possibly, you don't want to have that little fluke when you come back to play, but get your guys rested, get them ready for the long haul down the stretch, especially when you have to play Friday, Saturday for regional semis and regional finals to have a chance to go and play at Wausau West for the sectional semis. As
Steve just said, one of those teams is going to go to state.
Yeah.
They are, because they all play each other. And when you get to that sectional final game, it's who's got any gas left, because it's going to take everything you got to get out of that section. Everything.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just going through that again, Iola Scandinavia dropped their first game of the year last week to Shiocton. Shiocton's a 3-seed and a very high-scoring, very athletic team. and they're going to have to play a team that was state runners-up last year in Oshkosh Lourdes if they make it. I mean, St. Mary Springs, Crivets, Shockton really shouldn't have issues with that, and Oshkosh Lourdes has to play Bondwell or Menominee Indian. So just a very, very, very tough sectional for Division IV, and one of the most exciting parts of Division IV.
So again, over a half dozen highlights coming Tuesday night on the Zaleski Sports Facebook network. Thursday, live schedule. All games found at ZaleskiSports.com. It's Neillsville, Melrose, Mindoro, Loyal, Clear Lake, and Pacelli Marathon. And then Friday, we'll get after it again right away. Neillsville Marathon live. Edgar Spencer. Again, we're assuming, we're projecting Spencer, but whoever Edgar plays, that game will be live as well. So we'll be in Neillsville and in Edgar as they await their opponents, and then the whole thing comes crashing down somewhere, and you can't predict what's going to happen after that. So, all right, we'll touch on a little bit of gymnastics as we begin to see the final minutes of our show appear here on this Monday, March 2nd. Again, you're listening to the Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here. Steve Maves right next to me. For the second year in a row, the Marshfield gymnastics team is headed to state. We mentioned at the top of the show that one of the premier girls basketball players in the entire state, Leah Ernest, well, they've got Marshfield Gymnastics has, I would say, the premier. As a matter of fact, defending state champion Gracie Holland on that squad, and she no doubt will challenge again for another state title this year. But team is headed to state as they finish second in the WIAA Division I sectional Saturday at Eau Claire. Holman won the team title. They scored 139.925, and Marshfield 138.5. That's how the judging works in gymnastics. Again, you can read all about that at ZaleskiSports.com. All right, Steve, we'll wrap up with University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, and all pointer highlights found on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin, including what you saw on Saturday as the Pointers hosted the River Falls squad over there at KB Willett Arena.
Yep. Yeah, and they swept River Falls over the weekend to make it to their sixth straight WIAC men's hockey final. And like I talked to Coach Krieger afterwards, he told me this is the third straight year where they've took on River Falls in the semis, and now are taking on Eau Claire in the finals. So third straight year, they got the job done. They scored 2 goals in 19 seconds to begin the second period. Stephen Qualiata, and from his defensive spot, he was our Zaleski Sports Player of the Game, getting the job done. And Coach Krieger said afterwards told me after their Northland game, the final game of the regular season, they had a nice stretch where they were able to rest their guys. They don't go deep on their bench, but the guys that they have are getting the job done. They have not lost a hockey game since December 7th. They have won or tied every game for the last 2 months, and that goes to the coaching, and that goes to the thinking as a team coming off of an undefeated national championship season that you can put it all together and make a run. They're going up against Eau Claire, who they've beat twice. They've tied once. A team that's, I think, right now second in the country. They beat fourth in the country. They beat them a couple times when they were number 1 in the country. And so Point has jumped up in the top 25 already, number 9. And so they have a fantastic run going, and see if the Pointers can finish it off next Saturday against Eau Claire at a very – if you have never been to a UWSP men's hockey game at KB Willett Arena, go, because the students are fantastic, the crowd's fantastic, a lot of people there that know hockey, and they let you know. And they have a very, very fun time at Pointer hockey games.
Yeah, it's one of those arenas where everything you're right on the ice. Yep. I mean, there's not a bad seat in the house. Just you get in. Even some of the, as I think across from the benches, some of the standing room only areas over there off the balcony. It's just a nice, and there's not a bad seat in the house. Hockey, fast paced action. Puck goes left and right often, so you can't be in a bad spot, and especially there. And it is. It's a really, really good atmosphere. The university proud of what they've got going on over there at KB Willett Arena and elsewhere around the campus of UW-Stevens Point. Norwich is number 1 ranked team in Division III. They've got 18 first-place votes. They are 22-2-2. 298 points overall for Norwich. Eau Claire, as we mentioned, comes in. They are ranked 4th. They did garner 1 first-place vote. They are 19-4-2, one of those ties to UW-Stevens Point. The Pointers are ranked 9th. They are 16-6-3. And they did beat River Falls, as we mentioned. River Falls coming in was the 15th ranked team. And by the way, these are nationwide rankings.
Yeah.
And to point that out, too. But, yeah, so you got the number 4 team, the number 9 team. Again, Steve, what day and time is that game so people can get down to KB Willett?
Saturday night, March 7th at 7 o'clock. Again, Pointers, Blue Golds getting the job, going to be one fantastic atmosphere. A lot of people were there on Saturday when I went, and it's going to even be more packed on Saturday for the WIAC Conference Championship.
All right, there you have it, and that brings us to the end of today's Zaleski Sports Show. Again, all live games at ZaleskiSports.com. Highlights all week long on the Zaleski Sports Facebook network. Have a great week, everybody, and go Sports!